Once upon a time, there were stories about Vikings in North America. These tales spoke of mysterious lands and strange tribes known only as Skraelings. This happened around the year 1000 AD. For about 12,000 years, the Americas were isolated from Eurasia. People on both sides developed their own civilizations without even knowing about each other's existence. Nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus set sail, the Vikings came to the Americas from places like Greenland and Iceland. They might have even made the journey more than once. But their arrival wasn't exactly peaceful. Welcome back to Time Capsule. Today, we're taking a closer look at the marks left by the Vikings in North America, their conflicts with the Native Americans, and why they seem to vanish almost as quickly as they appeared. First contact. Around 980, a man named Eric the Red started convincing people to move to Greenland. He wasn't exactly given a choice to leave Iceland. He was banished for 3 years for causing harm to someone. Eric thought Greenland was a nice place, despite it being cold and harsh, so he named it Greenland to make it sound appealing. Surprisingly, many Vikings decided to settle there. Later, Eric's son, Leif Erikson, heard about lands to the west from a sailor who had been blown off course. Leif got curious and set sail with some men to explore these mysterious lands. They ended up somewhere believed to be Newfoundland. Leif's crew camped there for a bit, and his foster father got drunk on wild berries. Leif didn't stay long and went back to Greenland. There's no record of them meeting Native Americans during their visit. But Vikings in Greenland likely traded with Native Americans, called Skraelings by the Vikings, who were probably ancestors of the Inuit. Leif's brother, Thorvald, went on another voyage and encountered Native Americans. There was a fight, and Thorvald got killed. Despite this, Vikings stayed for a while before going back. A few years later, Thorfinn Karlsefni, a wealthy merchant, led a bigger expedition to the New World. They traded peacefully with Native Americans at first, but things turned sour. There was a big fight, and the Vikings had to leave. After that, no Europeans tried to settle in the New World for a long time. Archaeologists discover remains of Viking Village. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of proof or stuff dug up that shows Vikings were in the Americas. But there are a few interesting finds, like Lance Oaks Meadows in Newfoundland. It might be one of the coolest spots ever found by archaeologists. Back in the 1960s, a couple from Norway, Helge Ingstad and Anne Stine Ingstad, went hunting along the northeastern Canadian coast. They were hoping to find old stuff mentioned in Viking stories. And guess what? They struck gold. Well, not literally, but they found something amazing. Lance Oaks Meadows turned out to be the real deal, a genuine Viking settlement in North America. What did they find there? Well, there were the remains of 8 houses made of grass and dirt, and they found iron tools. Now, the thing is, Native Americans didn't use iron back then, so that's a big clue. Plus, they found a frame that looked like it was used to build boats. Some smart folks think maybe it was a repair shop for Viking ships, because it's in a good spot for sailing between Europe and Greenland. And to seal the deal, they found a little bronze pin. It's a fancy thing Vikings used to hold their cloaks together, and it's definitely Viking style. They found similar pins in Scotland and Ireland, all from around the same time as the settlement. So, it looks like Vikings really did set foot in North America after all. The Goddard penny. There's another interesting find that hints at Vikings being in the Americas, and it's way down in Brooklyn, Maine. In August 1957, a regular guy named Guy Melgren found a strange old coin on the beach. At first he thought it was just an old British coin from the Middle Ages. But later, in 1978, experts said it was actually a Norse coin made between 1065 and 1093. The place where Guy found the coin, called the Goddard site, also has loads of arrowheads. Some people think maybe the Vikings brought archery to the Native Americans there, but not everyone was convinced. Some history experts and archaeologists doubted the coin. They remembered past times when people made fake stuff about Vikings discovering America, like a fake map and a fake stone with Viking writing found in Minnesota. but after a close look, most experts agreed that this coin was real. It had all the marks of being buried for a long, long time. So maybe Vikings did leave a little bit of their history behind in America after all. The Vinland Sagas. We don't have a ton of details about Vikings settling in the Americas for long stretches, but we do have some stories from two old sagas, the saga of Eric the Red and the saga of the Greenlanders. They're called the Vinland Sagas when you put them together. These stories were written down a couple of hundred years after the events they talk about, which happened around 1000 AD. The sagas don't match up perfectly, but they both tell similar tales about Vikings living in North America. Now here's where it gets interesting. The sagas talk about three main places the Vikings went: Helluland, Markland, and Vinland. Helluland was up north, and it's described as a place with flat stones. Then there's Markland, more in the middle, which is said to be a land with lots of forests. Finally, there's Vinland down south, which supposedly had grapes, so people think it was a place where wine could be made. But here's the thing, we're not totally sure where these places really were. People have different ideas based on how the sagas describe the landscapes. Some think Helluland might be Baffin Island in Canada, Markland could be Labrador, and Vinland might be Newfoundland. There's also a mystery about a place called Straumfjord mentioned in the sagas. They describe it as having strong tides, a bay that's good for ships, rocky cliffs in the distance, and lots of birds nesting around. People have suggested all sorts of places in North America as the possible location of Straumfjord, from Canada's Bay of Fundy to places as far south as New York. So even though we're not totally sure where exactly the Vikings went, these sagas give us some cool hints about their adventures. Where did all the Vikings go? One big question about the Vikings in America is why they didn't stick around. Why didn't these tough warriors make a home for themselves? And why don't we have people speaking Norse here today? People have come up with different ideas about why this might be. Some think maybe they didn't bring enough supplies and people with them. Others suggest maybe they were pushed out by unfriendly Native Americans. But one of the main theories has to do with the weather. When Leif, Thorvald, and Thorfinn led their expeditions to America in the 11th century, the climate was warmer. This period is called the medieval warming period, and it meant warmer summers and less ice in the Arctic. But then things changed. In the 12th century it started to get colder. This is known as the Little Ice Age, and it brought colder temperatures and more ice, making it hard to sail. Life in places like Greenland and Iceland, where the Vikings came from, became really tough. There were food shortages and diseases, and lots of people left. For example, in Iceland, the population dropped a lot between 1250 and 1700. The Vikings' time in America was short. We mainly know about it from stories that were written down later, like the sagas. But we only have a few physical things to show for it: a small settlement, a pin, and a coin. It's pretty cool to imagine what could have happened if they had stayed longer. Do you think the Vikings really did come to America? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video, and if you found it informative, please like and subscribe to Time Capsule for similar content. We look forward to sharing more knowledge with you in the future. Until then, take care.